You're listening to the Tax Insights podcast, where the professionals at Hawkins Ash CPAs break down complex tax topics into bite-sized how-tos. It's that time of year. Form 1099s are due by January 31st. In general, a business owner would need to send a 1099 to anyone they paid more than $600 to for things such as rents, services, or prizes. In this episode, Jeff Dvorachek, a tax partner, explains what transactions would trigger a 1099 and the exemptions that may apply.
You know, as a business owner, you probably know that you're required to send 1099s out to your vendors and that your customers might be required to send them to you. For any 1099s that you're required to send, they're due by January 31st, which is why I wanted to get this show out today.
So let's start off with a refresher for everybody. What exactly is on Form 1099?
So the IRS for years has been trying to make sure that all income is captured. The IRS right now estimates that the tax gap is over $1 trillion. So this would be the cash and income that people receive, but they don't report on their tax returns. You probably even heard recently that the IRS was reminding people that, income from illegal activities is even taxable. So the IRS started to require businesses to report any time that they paid a customer a certain amount. Then the IRS would compare these amounts reported on the 1099 to what the company actually reported on their tax return to make sure that all the income was reported.
So who does a business owner need to send Form 1099s to?
In general, you need to send a 1099 to anybody that you paid at least $600 to for things like rents, services, prizes, even director's fees. And something that a lot of people don't know is even wages paid after an employee passes away goes on a 1099.
So do all business owners need to send 1099s?
Really only what's considered to be trader businesses, regardless of their size. So corporations, partnerships, sole proprietors, they all have to send 1099s. Individuals do not need to send 1099s to anybody that they make payments to. But there's also certain rental property owners that also should send 1099s.
So obviously there are always exceptions, correct?
There is. So if you're buying something and it essentially is inventory or it's merchandise that you're going to sell, you do not need to send a 1099 to that vendor. Also, if you're buying fixed assets, cars, desks, things like that, you don't need to send one to them.
So
here's a strange one. There's, if your customer is actually a corporation, you don't need to send it to them either.
Interesting. So how do you know if a company is actually a corporation then?
That's where what you want to do is you want to request a Form W-9, which is a request for taxpayer identification number. This form is going to show your vendor's name, address, identification number, and most importantly, it's going to show what kind of entity they are. Are they a corporation or are they something else? But, when in doubt, just send one. It doesn't hurt you to send one.
So what do you need to include then on Form 1099s?
You want to include all fees charged and any kind of expenses that you reimburse. So basically, all payments made to that vendor.
What if you don't send Form 1099s?
There can be fines, and the fines can be anywhere between $50 to $260, depending on, how late you are in sending those things out. The IRS kind of throws a big number out there saying, hey, we can charge you up to or fine you up to $1 million max. But the other thing that they could do is they can actually disallow a deduction if you don't send a 1099 out. So those are some of the things. Now, one last thing that I want to remind you, because I know time's getting short here, Terry, is that even if you're a business and you don't receive a 1099, that's still income to you as long as you received it from your customer.
Jeff, great information and reminders each and every week here on Tax Insight. How do listeners connect with the team at Hawkins Ash?
I would go to our website, hawkins.cpa. I would follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook.
Jeff, thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you again next week here on Tax Insight.
This has been Tax Insights, presented by Hawkins Ash CPAs. Learn more online at HawkinsAshCPAs.com. Hawkins Ash CPAs. Part of your business, part of your life.